My entire family tried to convince me that my husband's a cheater, and not only that, they're trying to manipulate me by saying that he's manipulating me because I won't give them money. Well, I believed them for a long time, and I thought my husband was manipulating me. But it turns out they were the ones doing it. Guys, this story is crazy. Let me start at the beginning and walk you through this. I'm 28 and female, and I've been married to my husband Jonathan for 3 years now. It's been a wonderful marriage, and I count myself lucky to have found such a good man. Yes, we have our differences, but the good moments far outweigh the bad, honestly. I can't see myself with any other man now. However, things have become worse in my family, and that's because my mom, or rather stepmother, is of the belief that my husband is simply manipulating me. I've been confused for a while and clearly need a second opinion on the matter because I'm thinking about all of it just too much. My stepmother, Isabel, has been my caretaker for over 10 years now. See, my father, he passed away before I entered college, and I barely have memories of my mom and don't know if she's even alive. Father married Isabel before I entered high school, and automatically I had a stepmother and 2 step-siblings, a woman my age, Laura, and a stepbrother that's 5 years younger named Elliot. Life after my father's death wasn't really pretty, as it took me time to get over his death. But I had my stepmother and siblings as comfort. Isabel made sure to send me to college, yeah? And because I knew how much she struggled to do so, I made sure that I was an excellent student. It was really difficult for me because in high school all I cared about was doing well enough and not excellently. There's a difference for those who know. Not only did I graduate as the second best student in my class, I met Jonathan. He's the cousin of my tutor from freshman year of college, somebody I would never have approached if not for my dedication to be a good student. So in a way, I do have my stepmother to thank for my marriage, if only she approved. I don't have the best memory, but I think the first time Jonathan met my stepmother was during my graduation. I know it was 3 years before she got to know that it's not exactly ideal, but I didn't see the point in informing her that I was dating someone. Besides, at the time, I didn't think she cared about things like that. Whenever she called, she only cared to know if I needed anything and if I was doing well in school. At first, I found it weird because I'd ask about other things if I was calling a friend, not to mention a family member. In the end, I figured that she was just too worried about my education. My step-siblings aren't really the brightest in the bunch. Yes, till this date, and I was probably the one with a promising future to her. Isabel made sure to land me one of the best jobs in my field, and after being certain that I was keeping my job, only called to ask for favors. A little cold, yeah, but I understood. There were times that we talked about other things, but they were rare. Isabel claimed to be focusing on my step-sibling, and I've learned to understand that. Jonathan, however, doesn't think so in the slightest. He never liked Isabel, so their feelings towards each other were mutual. Isabel wasn't happy knowing that he was a graduate without a job, and I tried to convince me that Jonathan wasn't the best choice for me. And while she was being extreme, let's face the facts here. My stepmother was only looking out for me, because who in their right mind would let their kid marry a man that could not sustain himself yet? She had let me be because I promised not to get married if he had gotten a job a year after my graduation. Luckily, it just all worked out, because Lord knows I found it hard to part ways with Jonathan, whether or not he was employed. My husband, on the other hand, is of the opinion that my stepmother doesn't care for me, and is only keeping me around for her own personal gains. I got mad at him at first when he mentioned this, and we had this huge argument. He doesn't mention it so much anymore, but I know he still feels that way, given his expression anytime I mention Isabel. He didn't dislike her for hating that he was unemployed. No, but was suspicious after hearing her reasoning. I'm not sure when the dislike started on his end, but I remember one time when I asked for some money to send to Isabel. She was thinking of sending Elliot to a pricey art school and had asked me to help out with the fees. It was difficult for me to come up with the amount of money that she needed on such short notice, so I asked Jonathan. He was very reluctant, but eventually gave me the money. This was 3 years ago, after Elliot had failed to get into college again. There might have been earlier instances, but like I said, I don't have the best of memory. The gist of the matter is that my husband and stepmother dislike each other, and I've tried everything I can to change that, all to no avail. My step-siblings share in Isabel's dislike towards Jonathan because one way or the other, my husband has stopped me from sending funds for things he's certain are unnecessary. Now to the main issue, and the reason why I'm even pouring all this out to you. My stepmother has asked me for money to get us a family home. When I was younger and my dad was alive, it was a dream of theirs. Isabel especially loved the idea. And my father saved up quite an amount of money before he passed away. The money my stepmother was asking for was not a lot, and I told her I would be able to give it to her in small bits. I'd also asked if she had a picture in mind, as I have friends in construction who might give better insight. But Isabel had told me that she had everything taken care of, minus the money. I've wired like thousands of dollars already, and I think that should do for now, you know? So I talked to Jonathan about it yesterday, and he was impassive, which it upset me. He gave all the and noises as I spoke, and frowned noticeably when I told him Isabel had not wanted my help. I fell asleep pretty quickly after this. This has been the norm for some time now, and I should go to the doctor because I don't sleep early. I woke up in the middle of the night to hear him discussing with Isabel over the phone, telling her to send the money back. He spoke in this hushed whisper, so I know he wasn't aware that I was awake. It took a while to fall back asleep because I was so darn annoyed. I woke up late with a headache, and I tried to be subtle about the entire thing and only asked for his thoughts regarding the house. He mentioned that he wasn't buying the idea and left home for work. That was completely different from what he said over the phone. I spoke to Isabel just a few hours ago, and she called actually, asking if Jonathan had stopped me from sending her the money. I had told her he did not, then asked why she thought that way, and she tells me not to listen to Jonathan if he ever tried to stop me from helping out. When she went ahead to mention him manipulating me into thinking she was a bad person, I was reminded of my husband because that sounded very much alike. I'm really sick of all this speculation and accusations, and I'm annoyed at my husband for demanding that my stepmother return the money that I gave her. Even if he was right and she just wanted my money to take care of herself and my step-siblings, I owe her that much. She was a parent to me when she could have easily chosen not to be. He has to understand that very soon, because I plan to speak to him as soon as he comes home, but I feel like it's going to be a very difficult conversation, and it would be great help if you could give some tips on how to approach him. Comment number 1 says, if your husband thinks your stepmother is manipulating you, perhaps you should find out what it is. Usually things aren't as easy for us to see, and we need someone else just to help us see it. Plus, I agree with your husband, and I don't even know the gravity of the situation. Don't do something stupid and cause even more problems for yourself. Update number 1, 2 weeks later. Confronting Jonathan was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. It hadn't started well because, he hadn't wanted to indulge me in the beginning, and I had to stop him from walking away, and when he spoke, we had a huge argument. I asked why he hid the fact that he had spoken to Isabel in the middle of the night from me, and just told me that he knew I was going to act out if he told me to ask for the money back. Well, yeah, he wasn't wrong, but it still just gave him no excuse to do what he did. I told him just that, and he went on and on about Isabel extorting him for money for a house. I wasn't sure it even existed. He tells me to think things through, reminding me that Isabel had not wanted me to get involved and needed just my money. It was starting to make sense, but I know my stepmother more than he does. For Pete's sake. And the fact that he kept getting into my head made my stepmother's words even more believable. Was Jonathan really this manipulative? I'll get to this later, because I've been thinking about it for the past few days. I'm currently on bed rest. I'll mention why that is soon, so I have plenty of time to think about a lot of things, including the type of man that my husband really is. During our argument, I have been a bit extra, I'll admit. I accused Jonathan and made sure to stand in front of him when he was being evasive. I don't know why I did that, because it's something that I usually would not do. Even Jonathan was surprised and wondered why I was so acting strange. but I wanted to know why he had a problem with me sending money to the family. And I was sick of hearing that they were manipulating me. Come on, it's ridiculous. And then I was determined to find out the truth. I know that Jonathan's hiding something from me because he had shut himself up in the middle of our argument and refused to say anything else. Instead, he managed to evade me and walked out of the house. I remember having a headache when I had calmed down, and the next thing I remember was seeing a worried Jonathan hovering over me. Apparently I had fainted, and my husband felt so guilty because of it. He's let the entire matter go and has told me he's fine with whatever I chose to do with my money. But I know it's the guilt speaking. He still hates that I spend my savings on Isabel, but has chosen to stay mute. On a lighter note, I found out why I fainted. I had thought I was overwhelmed, which wasn't a lie, but that wasn't the real reason. I'm pregnant. 5 weeks pregnant, and the news was surprising, and I'm so happy. Jonathan was absolutely over the moon because we've been trying for a while now. The news of our baby is probably another reason why Jonathan has been unbothered about my family. I've been told to rest for a few days before resuming work, and I've been pampered so much. Jonathan goes to work reluctantly now, but as soon as he gets back, he does everything that needs to be done around the house. I pity him at times because he ends up looking so exhausted, but with a smile on his face, like he's happy with himself. It's another source of my confusion, because things like these make me think that my stepmother is wrong about Jonathan and who he really is. If Jonathan really is as selfish as my stepmother claimed, he can't possibly act the way he currently is, can he? He's currently the kind of husband women dream of and talk about on social media. But then again, does that mean Jonathan is right about Isabel? She's someone that raised me, and despite being distant, was a good enough parent. After all this thinking, I'm still so confused. I'll just let things go. After all, Jonathan isn't making a fuss about things anymore, and my stepmother is happy. I'm still just really split between understanding who to trust. What do you guys think? Update number 2. 10 weeks later. Hey guys, I'm back. Well, I'm at work and a few colleagues have noticed my slight little bump. I want to talk about all the stages of my pregnancy and the things that I'm experiencing. I have the weirdest cravings, but that is out of the way. It's nice feeling in general, and I'm so glad that I no longer have to live in the confines of my bedroom for almost 20 hours a day. I do miss Jonathan's doting. He's still the same way, but it's not as constant since we're both at work now. My husband has a cute side to him, apparently. He started talking about baby names and talks to my belly at the most random of times, and he never fails to satisfy my unusual cravings. Thankfully, he's skilled in the kitchen, and it comes in handy at times like this. Things have been perfect between us, sort of. Something happened that changed everything, but it wasn't as bad as the last argument I had with my hubby. I didn't want what happened on the evening I fainted to ever happen again. It was terrifying and stressful, seeing as I lost consciousness. Now, to the problem I'm currently facing. It's all because of my stepsister, Laura. She'd started by calling me to tell me that she wanted to start up a small clothing business. I was happy for her because she wasn't very lucky during her interviews, and there was only so much that a poor certificate could get someone. The amount she needed was too much, so I advised her to get a loan if she needed that much money on such a short notice. Laura did not budge, saying that there was a lot at stake if her business plan did not work out. She encouraged me to try raising the money for her, and I don't know what words she used and how she said them, but I accepted it in the end. The gravity of what I've done hit me afterwards, and I went to speak to my husband about it. He was upset and asked why I agreed to something I clearly couldn't do. I told him that my sister has been desperate and needed my help as her family member. No matter how I put it to Jonathan, he didn't understand it. When I think about it, I can't really blame him. I clearly couldn't raise the money myself, and I had no intention of going to the bank and asking for a loan in my sister's stead. If things actually went south like she predicted, then it won't be good for me at all. There was the money I was already giving Isabel to consider as well, which was draining a lot of me. Jonathan had told me to tell Laura no. refusing to help out with such a ridiculous request, as he put it, and in the end there was only one thing left for me to do: work myself to the max. So, I already had a 9-to-5 and decided to add a freelancing career to that as well. It didn't take long for me to get another job, thankfully, and my workload began. I spent all my free time working, knowing full well that the money wasn't going to come in if I was idle and did nothing. Jonathan didn't know what I was doing at first, and most likely thought I was still working. When I stayed up late on my computer, and sometimes I caught myself at work really late, but it was progress. The job I took on was pretty tasking, and I found myself nearly breaking down at some points. Maybe it was the pregnancy that was the cause of it, or just natural stress, but I had to stop everything I was doing when something drastic happened to me. I was driving home from work 3 days ago, having not slept for almost an entire day, because I had a deadline to meet. I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my belly, and there happened to be blood following the pain. I've never been more freaked out in my life, and it took some time before I remembered Jonathan. I'd driven myself to the hospital to get myself checked, and my husband had barged in minutes later, looking like hell. I was told that my baby was okay, but I was putting myself through a lot which was endangering my child. The doctor, he was firm about me getting rest this time, and I promised to do so. The ride back home was strange. Neither me nor Jonathan said anything, but I could tell there was a lot that he wanted to say. I hadn't argued when he ensured I took a shower, cooked me something to eat, and lay me down in the bed after dinner. I had made a mental note to call work, given what the doctor said, and I said a silent prayer in hopes that I wouldn't get fired. I've been absent for far too long, and while I do have an amazing boss, there's only so much that she can help me out with. Maybe I could just talk her into giving me a remote job or something. I don't know. There's Laura to think of as well. I'm not in any condition to work, and Jonathan was definitely not going to help out. The plan was to give her the money I made and then try to explain things to her. The bank loan option was still there, and she could try her best to ensure that she didn't fail. I totally understand her fear, but at the same time, she should understand the situation I'm in. I just hope things work out for the best. I just feel really, really guilty. Update number 3. Hey guys, it's me. This is about a month later. Things did work out for the best, just not in the way that I hoped that they would. On the bright side, a lot of things are now crystal clear to me, and now I can set things straight and act knowing fully well that I'm doing the right thing. I knew that sooner or later I was going to know who really was manipulating me, and shocking as it was, I'm glad at the confusion because it's finally over. You see, Laura has visited this time, just to ask me for the money that she needed. She came to the right time, when I supposed to get paid for both of my jobs. However, I was going to disappoint her because not only did I quit my freelancing job after almost having a miscarriage, I had asked for an opportunity to work from home. My offer, it was immediately shot down. But to my surprise, my boss had called a week later, and now I work as a virtual assistant. It was a lower pay, but better than nothing. Jonathan was more than happy with it, and my cute husband never failed to remind me to call if I suspected anything was wrong. When I saw my sister at the door a few days ago, I was nervous, wondering how I was going to tell her what needed to be said. Then, as I spoke, I watched her smile drop from her face. She was livid by the time I was done and asked why I was unable to keep working, just to go help her out. It's sad to hear, honestly. One would think the first thing she would think about was my health and that my unborn baby's health, but all she cared about was getting money from me. I tried talking to her and, tell her to take a loan. But that seemed to make her mad even more, and after yelling in my face and calling me all sorts of useless names, Laura has stormed off of my house, leaving me in tears. I was shocked that she did something like this to me. I was close to losing a baby, and all she cared about was money that I didn't even owe her? I'd stayed in the living room thinking things through till Jonathan came back. He was shocked to see me in the state that I was in, and when I told him everything while crying, his expression turned dark. If not for the fact that I asked him to stay with me, I'm almost sure that he would have stormed out to look for Laura himself. I was also waiting for his "I told you so," but all I got was sympathy from him. He stayed with me till I fell asleep, and when I cracked my eyes open at some point at midnight, I saw him shutting off his laptop. All in all, I'm no longer convinced that my husband is manipulative. He's the sweetest man I know, and dang what my stepmother thinks. I'm so happy that she hasn't done anything so drastic that pushed him away, because if I'd found out that I lost someone like him, I would have been really mad. The next day, Jonathan talked to me and performing a little experiment with him. You see, it happened to be a weekend, so he was with me all throughout it. He told me that Isabel was going to be just like Laura, and I decided to test the theory. He was right in the end. Isabel had also taken my call and told me that she knew what had happened because Laura had told her everything. I informed her that the doctor had advised that I stay at home to avoid losing my baby. I won't say every annoying thing I heard from my stepmother, but I don't think I'll ever forget this one, and I quote, "You should take out a loan or something to help Laura out. It was selfish of you to sit home after your sister begged for money, and it's not like you even lost the baby." Yes, that's what my stepmother said after I explained myself over and over. Jonathan had left me alone after I confirmed that he was right about everything. I've thought about it a lot by now. With the new information I have about my stepfamily, there's no way that I'll let them off scot-free after treating me like I was a tree that existed only to be their source of money. Ugh. If they don't care about me and what I was going through, I was going to do the same to them. I'll build my dad's dream house myself when I get more than enough money. Neither Isabel nor Laura will ever get a cent from me, not after this. Update number 4. This is the final update of the story, and it's 3 months later. Hey guys, I can't even count how many times I thought about what happened between me and my stepfamily. I no longer keep in touch with them, and I'm sure that they were wise enough to do the same. Back then, after finding out that my stepfamily was only using me for monetary purposes, I stopped contacting them, and refused all forms of contact from them. Laura was the first to visit after I ignored all of her texts and messages. She had informed me that she had applied for a loan and that she hoped that I would be able to get the money back in some months. I told her that her loan was none of my business, and asked her to leave my house. She was shocked about it, so it was obvious on her face that it was so funny. The yelling started then, but Jonathan was around, causing yet another funny facial expression to grace Laura's face. She left in the end, grumbling under her breath, but I could not care less. The texts that she sent after her visit were read but not replied to. How hard was it to understand that I was not going to help her financially ever again? It took 2 days for my stepmother to call. She was calm like she always was, asking me why I refused to help out Laura. I told her that Laura was an adult who could actually fend for herself. I also told Isabel not to ask me anything regarding my stepsister because I would get mad and disconnect from the call. While I couldn't see her face, I knew for a fact that she was surprised by my new behavior. The calm in her voice remained, though, until I mentioned not funding the construction of the new house. There was an irritating shriek in my ear, and just like Laura, Isabel began to hurl insults at me. She called me ungrateful of a daughter, a good-for-nothing person, and a whole bunch of other things. Before she ended the call, she mentioned forgiving my impudence. I blamed myself for taking the call in the first place and definitely learned from my mistake. Well, Isabel happened to be worse than Laura. I'd never have thought it to be so, but then again, I never ignored her before. She called at least 10 times each day for 5 days and then proceeded to text. I read the text, of course, and they were reminders of rents and bills, my stepbrother's college fees, and the dream house. The more I saw them, the more stupid I felt. How did I think that I would be able to provide the money for all this? I was just one woman with one job, yet it seemed like I was carrying the financial burden of 2 entire families. I didn't reply to Isabel, so she came to me during the weekend. Isabel was mad, yelling about all sorts of things, because I was the only child that had the potential to be successful. She ran and ran about telling neighbors that I was all sorts of messed up, who could not pay back what she owed. And I can't even begin to explain how mortifying the whole experience was. Jonathan had not let her in, and in her anger, she had hurt my husband. I was so upset and threatened to call the police on her if she ever shows her face here again. Well, it didn't stop her, and the next day when Jonathan was at work, she came again, yelling at the top of her lungs that I was an ungrateful daughter, and I felt guilty when she was being carried away. But I did warn her that I would call the police. After staying a night in jail for harassment and hitting an officer, the threats began. There was the one where she promised to make me pay for my humiliation I put her through. There was one where she threatened Jonathan, and there was one when she swore to get the money she needed to take care of her husband. Then there was emotional blackmail, and when I couldn't take it anymore, I asked for a restraining order. Laura has asked for money once or twice these past months, but she's given up. I hope she's able to pay back her loan, if she took one in the first place. As for Isabel, I haven't spoken to her or heard from her ever since. I guess I can say good riddance, honestly. My belly is big now, and I'll have a child due in a few months, and I'm excited. As for my dad's dream house, I've been thinking of taking part in it. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but a new house does sound like a good place to raise a family. Guys, what a story. I want to read these comments really quick. The first one says, "Can't wait for the baby to be here. It seems like you'll be a great mom, given your kind heart even after what your stepmother did to you. And kudos to you on getting rid of that. It's not something you'll need in your new family, if you ask me. I also give some friendly advice. Don't let anyone plant any seed of doubt in your heart about your husband's integrity. He seems like a solid man, and it'll be a shame if you ever lose him." All right, guys, that was more of a positive comment, but now we're going to look at a different one. It says this: "I couldn't help but laugh." Yeah, that's right. A lot of things I read are ridiculous here, to be honest. First of all, how could you not see that you were being extorted? It was so obvious that a man you introduced into your life could see it. You would easily avoid all of this drama if you were just smarter. Thank goodness for Jonathan. I want to know which one of those comments you're rocking with the most. Drop it down below. Let's talk about this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want more drama stories every single day, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.